Okay, welcome back. This is part two of The Handmaid's Tale and the dystopian genre. So I'm just going to talk you through the activities in the study guide, looking at what aspects of Gilead are dystopian. So when we're talking about dystopian aspects in the novel, we are looking at 5 different parts of Gilead: the political aspects of it, the environmental aspects, religious um, sections or ideas about religion in the novel, economy, and the socio-cultural environment. All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do in your study guide is to identify some examples from the novel for each of those different parts of society or parts of Gilead. So just to go over what sociocultural factors means, this is really focusing on what aspects of society and culture are dystopian in the novel. All right, so it might be looking at things like marriage, rites and rituals, particular family networks, behavioral norms, the isms. So is there racism, is there sexism, is there homophobia, those sorts of things. Holidays, the language that's used. And there are also different ways that you can classify each of those different things. So some of the cultural factors might be ideas around education and values and the concepts of beauty, marriage and traditions, whereas social factors might be the social hierarchies, people's roles in society, how the housing works. So for example, the fact that in the commander's house, it's not just the commander and his wife that live there, it's also the handmaids, 2 Marthas, and Nick, who is a guardian but also could be an eye, according to Offred. All right, so when you're thinking about your examples and you're trying to come up with the socio-cultural examples, maybe come back to this and have a think about which of these aspects are really focused on in the society that Atwood has created in the novel. All right, so some examples of what makes Gilead dystopian from chapters 1 to 7 are shown here, and these are also in your study guide. And the task that you're going to do is on pages 10 and 11 of your study guide. All right, so it's a good idea to say perhaps what the aspect is and then put in a quote from the novel if you can find one, just to back that up, especially if you are going to want to use it for one of the 2 essays that you're writing on the novel. All right, so on pages 10 and 11 of your study guide, there is a chart like this, and I would like you to come up with examples for each of those 4 sections. You'll see I've put political and economic together there just to make it a bit easier for you. And you know, in terms of social hierarchy, have a think about how society works, apart from the wives, who do have quite a high status but not much responsibility. All of the women in the society are regarded as less than the men in the society. The other thing that I want you to think about when you're thinking about the genre, of course, is our protagonist, Offred, and her character arc throughout, and how living in Gilead transforms and changes her, or whether in fact she remains a similar character from the beginning to the end. So Offred's put in a situation where she lives in a pretty normal kind of world, a bit like our world today, which is pre-Gilead. She goes to university, she has a job, she has a family, she has a bank account, and she's able to do all of the things that we're able to do as women in our society. And then that all changes, not overnight, because she talks about how at first there were, changes made and people did go out and protest, but those protests were put down really violently. People were killed, and Luke said to her, you need to think about your family, and so she chooses not to be part of that protest, and that's where that idea of complacency comes in. So what actually happens for her character over the course of her narrative as she finds out more about Gilead, as she interacts more with some of the other characters, and we learn more about the society that she lives in. So I want you thinking about that, because we are going to come back to character a little bit later in our novel study, and so it's a good idea to be thinking about it now so that you've got some ideas for when we discuss these things. All right, the last thing that I want you to think about in terms of the dystopian genre is this idea of what issues raised in the novel are still relevant to us in 2020. And as you know, the novel was written in 1980, well, published in 1985, so quite a long time ago, and still the issues raised are relevant, and perhaps even more relevant than they were then. So it is not a novel that is of its time and just sort of stayed in the 1980s. It has got timeless issues and themes that are still relevant to us today.